Hi, welcome back. In this video, we're going to be going over tax credits. We are going to skip lines 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18 for right now. These lines will be discussed in the next video. A tax credit is a tax incentive that allows taxpayers to subtract the amounts of the credit from the total they owe. Most tax credits are non-refundable tax credits, meaning that they can only be used to the point at which no more taxes are owed. However, some tax credits are refundable tax credits. If the credit exceeds the amount of taxes owed, the excess is given to the taxpayer. The first credit we will be looking at is on Form 1040, line 19. This is the child tax credit and credit for other dependents from Schedule 8812. A child tax credit of $2,000 per child is available. There are a few conditions for this credit. The first condition is age. The child must have been 16 or younger on December 31st. Citizenship. The child must be a United States citizen, a United States national, or a resident alien. Dependent. The child must be claimed as a dependent on their tax return. Relationship. The child must be related to the taxpayer in one of the following ways: son, daughter, stepson, stepdaughter, brother, sister, stepbrother, stepsister, grandchild, niece, or nephew. This includes any legally adopted child and any child lawfully placed with them in preparation for adoption, and any foster child lawfully placed in their care. Residency. The child must have lived with the taxpayer for more than half of the year, which is at least 183 nights. Temporary absences for special circumstances are generally acceptable, and special rules may apply if they're divorced or for other circumstances. For more details, you can check the instructions for Schedule 8812. Support. The child must have not provided more than half of their own financial support for the year. We are again going to be looking at Emily Green. Emily has 2 children who she provided support for, and they are aged 17 and 14. Based on the information just learned, we see that her children will qualify for the credit. The amount entered on line 19 comes from Schedule 8812, so we will need to complete this schedule. Line 1 asks for the amount from line 11 of Form 1040. Lines 2A, 2B, and 2C asks for income from Puerto Rico that was excluded, the amounts from lines 45 and 50 of Form 2555, foreigner and income, and the amount from line 15 of Form 4563, exclusion of income for bona fide residents of American Samoa. Line 3 asks to add lines 1 and 2D. This equals $60,163 for Emily. On line 4, you will enter information regarding the taxpayer's dependents. We will enter the total number of children, which is 2 for Emily. On line 5, we will multiply line 2 by 2,000 to get the total of 4,000, which is entered here. Line 6 is the number of other dependents, including any qualifying children who are not under the age of 17 or who do not have the required Social Security number. 0 in this case. On line 7, multiply line 6 by 500. Line 6 was 0, so this equals 0. On line 8, lines 5 and 7 are added, equaling 4,000. On line 9, 200,000 is entered for the head of household filing status. As you can see, you will enter the amount corresponding with the taxpayer's filing status. So because Emily is filing head of household, we enter the amount of $200,000 here. On line 10, line 9 is subtracted from line 3, equaling less than 0, so here we enter 0. On line 11, line 10 is multiplied by 5%, 0 here because line 10 was 0. On line 12, line 11, which is 0, is subtracted from line 8, 4,000, which equals 4,000. On line 13, we need to enter the amount from the Credit Limit A worksheet found in the instructions to Schedule 8812. As you can see, this credit asks for a lot of amounts from Schedule 3. So we're going to finish filling out Schedule 3, and then we're going to come back to this worksheet to finish filling out Schedule 8812. Line 20 of Form 1040 uses the amount from Schedule 3, Line 8. So filling out Schedule 3 will help us be able to fill in Line 20 of Form 1040. We're going to now go to Schedule 3 to learn how to fill it out. The first part of Schedule 3 is for non-refundable credits. Non-refundable credits can only be used to the point at which no more taxes are owed. Let's quickly review what each line is used to enter. Line 1 is for the foreign tax credit. The foreign tax credit is for income taxes paid to a foreign government as a result of foreign income tax withholding. Line 2 is for the credit and dependent care expenses, which is derived from Form 2441. This credit is refundable if the taxpayer lives in the United States for more than half the year. If they did not live in the United States for more than half the year, the credit is non-refundable and the amount is entered on Schedule 3, Line 2. The key requirement for this tax credit is that the care was necessary so the taxpayer could work or look for work. Line 3 is for education credits, which are derived from Form 8863. There are two education credits, the American Opportunity Credit and the Lifetime Learning Credit. The American Opportunity Credit helps pay for expenses during the student's first 4 years of college and can reduce $2,500 per student off the tax bill. The Lifetime Learning Credit can be used for undergraduate, graduate, and professional degree courses for anyone and offers a maximum annual $2,000 of savings. Line 4 is for the Retirement Savings Contribution Credit, which is derived from Form 8880. The Retirement Saving Contribution Credit is a tax break designed to reward lower wage earners who contribute to retirement accounts. Line 5 is for the residential energy credits, which are derived from Form 5695. If energy-efficient products or renewable energy systems are purchased and installed in a taxpayer's home, the taxpayer may be eligible for federal tax credits available for residential properties. Line 6 is for other non-refundable credits, including the general business credit, the adoption credit, and the credit for elderly and disabled. Line 7 is for all other non-refundable credits. Line 8 is an add line, and the total is then entered on line 20 of Form 1040. So for line 2 of Schedule 3, which is for the credit for child and dependent care expenses, Amy had $800 of summer camp expenses for her children while she worked on her summer business. She will need to fill out Form 2441 in order to take advantage of this credit. Following along with this form, we will enter the care provider's information on line 1. On line 2, we enter the amounts that were spent for each dependent. On line 3, we enter the total of the child's care expenses. On line 4, earned income is entered. Line 5 is for the spouse's earned income. If there is no spouse, such as in our case, you just enter the earned income again. Line 6 is for the smallest of line 3, 4, and 5. Line 7 is the amount on line 11 of Form 1040, which is adjusted gross income. Line 8 enters 0.2, and we multiply the amount on line 6 by this percent, getting the total amount of 160 for line 9A. For line 9B, we enter 0. For if the taxpayer paid 2022 expenses in 2023, they will need to complete Worksheet A in the instructions. Line 10 is for the tax liability limit. For this line, we complete the credit limit worksheet in the instructions. Line 11 is the total amount of credit that Emily can take for the dependent care expenses. The amount that she can deduct is refundable because she resided in the US, and so this amount will be added to Schedule 3 as a refundable credit later in this video. For line 3, Emily had expenses of $2,400 from a course that she took at a local college. For the non-refundable lifetime learning credit, 20% of higher education expenses qualify for the credit with a maximum of $2,000. Emily is able to deduct 20% of her college expenses by taking the non-refundable lifetime learning credit. 20% is $480, and this is entered on line 3 of Schedule 3. Now moving on to line 5. A common reason to fill out line 5 would be if a taxpayer installed solar panels. Form 5695 needs to be completed. Once Schedule 3 is filled out to completion, we can enter the total amount from Schedule 3, which was $480 here on line 20 of Form 1040. Now we can complete the worksheet for the child tax credit, which we had started earlier. The first line of the worksheet asks for the amount from line 18 of Form 1040. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, line 18 is going to be discussed in the next video. So for right now, I'm going to enter the amount of tax, but how to get this number is going to be discussed in the next video. We can then enter in the amounts from Schedule 3 and or Schedule 5695 if applicable. We then go on to line 3, where the amounts from line 2 and line 1 are subtracted. If a taxpayer is taking any of the following credits, either the mortgage interest credit, adoption credit, residential clean energy credit, or the District of Columbia first-time homebuyer credit, then they must complete the credit limit worksheet B. Emily is not, so she does not need to complete this worksheet, and she can enter the amount from line 5 on her Schedule 8812, line 13. We end up with a total amount of $4,000, which is added to line 19 of Form 1040. This is Emily's refundable tax credit. Going back to Form 1040, after entering line 19, we're going to skip lines 22 to 26 and go to line 27, which is for the Earned Income Credit. The Federal Earned Income Tax Credit, or EIC, is a refundable tax credit for low to moderate income working individuals and couples, particularly those with children. For a person or couple to claim one or more persons as their qualifying child or children, the relationship age and shared residency requirements must be met, as well as the joint return test. The details of claiming the EIC are discussed more in the reading material. If a taxpayer has a qualifying child, they will attach Schedule EIC. The instructions for 1040 details who can take the credit, and the IRS can calculate the amount of credit for the taxpayer. For 2023 head of household filers, the credit can be taken if they have an AGI of under 52,918. Emily's AGI is above the AGI limit, and so she cannot take the EIC. Line 28 is for the additional child tax credit from Schedule 8812. Going back to Schedule 8812, we see that an additional tax credit can be taken if line 12 of the schedule is more than line 14. Looking back at her Schedule 8812, we see that the line 12 is less than line 14, so she doesn't qualify for any additional tax credit. Line 29 is for the American Opportunity Credit from Form 8863, education credits. The maximum total credit is $2,500 of the cost of tuition, fees, and course materials paid during the taxable year. If the student brings the amount of tax due to zero and does not fully use the total credit of $2,500, the student may take 40% of any remaining portion as a refundable credit up to $1,000. Emily did have college tuition expenses, though she cannot take the American Opportunity Credit because it is limited to the student's first 4 years of higher education. And so therefore, she took the non-refundable lifetime learning credit. Line 30 was used in prior years for the recovery rebate credit, though that credit has expired in 2022, and line 30 is now a reserved for future use line. Line 31 is the amount from Schedule 3, line 15. Going back to Schedule 3, Part 1, we will continue from line 9. We will go over what each line item is. Some lines are more common than others. Line 9 is for the premium tax credit, which is a credit that helps eligible individuals and families cover the premiums for their health insurance purchased through the health insurance marketplace. Line 10 is the amount paid with request for extension to file. Line 11 is for excess Social Security and Tier 1 RRTA tax withheld. The most common case for a taxpayer to have excess Social Security withheld is if they switch jobs mid-year. Line 12 is for the credit on federal tax on fuels. This is for taxpayers who have a non-taxable use of certain fuels. Line 13 A to Z is for other payments or refundable credits, such as qualified sick and family leaves taken before April 1st, 2021, and the health coverage tax credit. Line 14 is to add up the amounts on line 13. Line 15 is the total amount on lines 9 through 12 and 14. This amount is then entered on line 31 of Form 1040. We will go on to Form 1040 and continue with line 32 to determine Emily's total, other payments, and refundable credits. Adding up lines 27A and 28 through 31, we get 0, which is her total other payments and refundable credits. That is it for this video, and stay tuned for the next video where we will go over the remaining lines of Form 1040.